In a stunning turn of events that has shaken both the mining world and fans of reality TV, Gold Rush stars Tony Beets and his son Mike Beets have been sentenced to life in prison. The sentence, handed down yesterday in a packed courtroom in Yukon Territory, concludes what many are calling the most significant criminal case to emerge from the reality TV mining scene. The father-son team, famous for their Dutch accents, blunt language, and intense mining style, were found guilty on several serious charges, including widespread environmental destruction, claim jumping, false gold reporting, and what prosecutors described as a large-scale criminal conspiracy unprecedented in modern mining history. The Beets Paradise Hill site, long portrayed on TV as a successful mining operation, has now been exposed as the center of a major criminal enterprise built on lies and environmental damage. The investigation began 3 years ago when fellow miner Parker Schnabel, once a protege of Tony Beets, reported suspicious activity near his claims. What started as a routine check quickly evolved into a full-blown criminal case after authorities uncovered widespread environmental violations that surpassed anything previously seen in the Klondike region. Lead prosecutor Catherine White stated, "What we discovered went far beyond simply cutting corners for profit. The evidence showed that Tony and Mike Beets made deliberate efforts to avoid environmental regulations, causing long-term ecological damage that experts estimate could take decades to fix." As Judge Robert Tmain announced the historic sentence, the courtroom was silent. He said, "Mr. Beets and son, based on the overwhelming evidence and your complete lack of remorse, this court has no choice but to impose the maximum penalty, a life imprisonment without parole." Tony Beets, 75, known for his rugged appearance and foul-mouthed commands, stood emotionless as the verdict was read. His usual bravado faltered only when his son Mike, 35, received the same sentence. Mike, who had taken over much of the family business in recent years, was visibly shaken as the reality of the punishment set in. The 11-week trial featured familiar faces from Gold Rush, creating a surreal courtroom drama where TV stars were now testifying under oath. Former employees of the Beets crew offered some of the most damaging testimony, revealing that they had been ordered to carry out environmentally harmful practices when cameras weren't rolling. Rick Ness, a well-known miner from the show and one-time associate of the Beets and Schnabel, described private conversations he overheard about the so-called dual mining strategy, clean operations for the camera, and illegal ones off-camera. Ness testified, "Tony always said there was TV mining and real mining," adding that they were told never to film certain activities or speak of them outside the crew. A major shock came when Tony's wife, Minnie Beets, agreed to testify against her husband and son in exchange for immunity. As the family's longtime bookkeeper, she handed over financial documents that showed gold was underreported and sold illegally through black market channels. Her testimony split the Beets family. Daughters Monica and Bianca supported their mother but were stunned by the revelations about their father and brother. Both attended the sentencing but avoided the press, leaving quietly. Parker Schnabel, whose tip started the investigation, testified over 3 days about what he saw while working near the Beets site. Now 30, Parker recalled how Tony had mentored him in his early years but said he later witnessed troubling signs. "I respected Tony," he said. "But eventually I saw things that didn't match legal mining practices. When water ran black with pollutants at 3 a.m. onto my claim, and test samples showed mercury and other banned chemicals, I knew I had to report it." The case also drew in Discovery Channel staff, some of whom testified under subpoena. While several producers denied knowing anything illegal was going on, others admitted they had suspicions but didn't speak up to avoid damaging the show. Executive producer Christo Doyle admitted the production team only films around 15% of the mining season and said they relied on the miners to follow local laws during the rest of the time. "We had no way to monitor what went on when we weren't filming," Doyle said under questioning. This trial has sparked major concerns about oversight in reality TV production, with critics warning that the drive for ratings can lead to a lack of accountability and even enable criminal behavior. Discovery Channel issued a statement expressing shock over the case and denying any involvement in illegal operations. Fred Lewis, a veteran and later season cast member, testified about a conversation he once had with Tony Beets at a cast party. Tony had been drinking and started bragging that environmental rules didn't apply to him, Lewis recalled. I thought it was just part of his tough guy act. I never imagined how serious it really was. The prosecution introduced a wide range of environmental evidence, including satellite images taken before and after mining activities by the Beets operation. These images showed significant unauthorized alterations to waterways and the destruction of protected wetlands. Environmental scientists testified that in some areas, mercury and other heavy metal contamination exceeded legal limits by more than 200 times. Todd Hoffman, a former cast member who left the show to pursue other ventures, was brought in by the defense as a character witness. However, this strategy quickly backfired when prosecutors used the opportunity to question Hoffman about his previous disputes with Tony Beets. "Yes, Tony and I had our differences," Hoffman admitted. "He called my operation amateur and inefficient. Looking back, I wonder if that was because I was trying to follow the rules, while he clearly wasn't." The case took a dramatic turn when evidence revealed that the Beets operation had allegedly trespassed onto claims owned by other miners featured on the show, secretly extracting gold from land they didn't own. Dave Turan, now the star of Gold Rush, Dave Turan's Lost Mine, testified that he had noticed strange excavation patterns along the edges of a claim he had worked years earlier. "At the time, I couldn't prove anything, but the numbers didn't make sense," Turan said. "The gold we expected to find based on testing was missing, as if someone else had already mined it. Now I understand what was really going on." Defense attorney Jonathan Blackwood, a well-known figure, argued that the prosecution was targeting Tony Beets out of envy over his family's success and Tony's larger-than-life television persona. He claimed the case was an example of selective prosecution. Despite this claim, the strategy faltered as the prosecution presented detailed environmental reports, financial documents, and witness testimonies from former employees who had been involved in the illegal activities. "My client plays a role on TV," Blackwood said in closing statements. "The authorities have confused Tony Beets the performer with Tony Beets the businessman. This is an extreme overreaction, driven more by media hype than the true state of the mining industry." That defense crumbled completely when the prosecution unveiled secretly recorded conversations between Tony and his son Mike, in which they discussed how to hide environmental violations. In one especially damaging recording, Tony was heard advising Mike to schedule illegal mercury use during times when inspectors would be away from the area. After the verdict, several jurors spoke anonymously about their decision. "The evidence was just overwhelming," said one juror, a woman in her 40s. "We really tried to be fair and separate Tony's TV image from the actual business practices, but the evidence showed a clear, intentional pattern of wrongdoing." Another juror, a man with experience in mining, said, "As someone familiar with how mining is supposed to work, I was stunned. This wasn't about errors or misunderstandings. The Beets built their entire business on bypassing environmental rules to make more money. The damage they caused to Yukon waterways is beyond measure." The verdict has had a major impact on the Yukon mining community, which has benefited economically from the popularity of Gold Rush. Some local business owners expressed mixed reactions, recognizing the seriousness of the crimes but also fearing the fallout for the region's reputation. "Tony Beets brought global attention to the Klondike," said longtime Dawson City resident Marion Clark. "Tourism grew because of the show, but that doesn't excuse the harm to our land. Mining is our way of life, but it must be done responsibly." As Tony and Mike Beets begin serving their sentences, uncertainty looms over the family's mining assets and claims. Prosecutors have announced that a separate civil case will determine the future of those assets, and that much of the equipment and land will likely be sold to help fund environmental restoration in the affected areas. Discovery Channel now faces a crisis with one of its most successful programs. While the network has committed to continuing Gold Rush with the remaining mining crews, some question whether the show can thrive without the polarizing presence of the Beets family. Chris Dumit, a fan-favorite gold room operator who has worked with different teams on the show, reflected the mood outside the courthouse. "This is a sad day. No one wins. The environment is damaged, people's lives are torn apart, and a dark cloud now hangs over an industry full of honest, hardworking miners." As Tony and Mike were led away in handcuffs, Tony turned to the packed courtroom for one final remark. In a moment reminiscent of his television persona but devoid of bravado, he said, "The Viking has fallen," before being taken through the door that ended his decades-long reign over a mining empire. For longtime fans of Gold Rush, the conviction forces a painful reassessment of past episodes. What once looked like triumphant mining scenes are now viewed through the lens of corruption and crime. Environmental organizations have already begun repurposing show footage alongside trial evidence to create educational content about the importance of responsible mining practices. This case also raises significant concerns about the role of reality TV producers in monitoring the legality of what they film. Executives from multiple networks have since called for industry-wide standards to ensure shows featuring resource extraction operate within legal and ethical boundaries. Tony's other children, Kevin and Monica Beets, who regularly appeared on the show and worked in the family business, were not charged. Evidence showed they were not involved in the decision-making that led to the violations. In a joint statement, they said they were shocked by the extent of the wrongdoing and asked for privacy as they planned their next steps personally and professionally. With the next mining season approaching, the Yukon community must move forward without two of its most well-known figures. Local authorities have announced stricter inspections for all mining operations, and Discovery Channel has assigned compliance officers to remain on filming sites even when cameras are not in use. The unprecedented life sentences given to Tony and Mike Beets now serve as a powerful warning about the severe consequences of environmental crimes and the risks of believing that fame can shield anyone from justice. Tony Beets, once self-proclaimed king of the Klondike, now faces the remainder of his life as federal prisoner number 88675309. His empire, built from dirt and gold, has collapsed under the weight of justice he thought he could escape.